Hey, peace and blessings. What's happening, baby? It's your boy ChefSouL here, and welcome to the smartest podcast in the world. Now, I know what you're saying. How can this cat claim to be the smartest guy in the world? Well, I live in the world of my own design. In my world, I'm the smartest cat walking. Come on in, take a spin. As I say on all my posts, you're going to laugh, you might cry, but you're going to definitely get smarter. Over the course of this journey, I plan on having some experts in different fields, and let's get right started, man. My given name is David Alexander. I go by the moniker of ChefSouL. So why did I want to do this podcast, especially when right now I'm hot as fish grease, I'm popping, I'm busy, man, you know what I'm saying? Putting out vegan meals and meal prepping and my other chef duties, man. Like, I'm on a 7-day-a-week joint, you know what I mean? Trying to get this shmoney. I got dreams and aspirations, baby. But as you're coming in, hit that like and subscribe button for me. You know what I'm saying? Because that's all I want from you. I'm doing this podcast not to sell you something, not to get a dime out of your pocket, but I'm doing this podcast for a couple of reasons. And the first is because I want to affect your life. That's why I use the moniker of soul after all my names. Brother Soul, Chef Soul. The reason why is because I want to touch people's soul with food and with music. I believe my calling from the Most High is to be a healer in many ways. And so I've learned about food. I've learned about many modalities that bring about health and wellness, which is that's what we all chasing. Holism is the idea of being in balance with all three phases of a human being, which is physical, spiritual, and mental. And so just like on any sports team, let's take football. You got offense, defense, and special teams. Well, if you weaken any one of those three, you're probably not going to win no championships. You know what I'm saying? You got to have balance in all three of those. And a lot of times, a lot of things in this life and in this society gear you towards strengthening one, maybe two, but you got to do all three. And some people don't know how to. So over the course of this podcast, I'm going to reveal things that I learned. I'll explain as I go through my story. And I'm doing this a certain way for this very first inaugural episode. Again, please hit the like and subscribe button as you're coming in. All right. So I'm doing this podcast because I want to affect your life in a positive way. I want to touch your soul. I want to feed you. I want to give you information. This is my God-given mission. I would do it even if you didn't want me to. The second reason, to be honest, is to satisfy my own ego. The name of this episode is Know Thyself. And you have to know yourself. And I know me. And whether or not, I struggled with this when I first found out about it, but whether or not you know, all human beings have something that makes us not so normal, or a personality disorder. My particular one happens to be a histrionic personality disorder. Now, some people have the disorder and they're wacko, you know what I'm saying? But basically, this little personality disorder, it makes you yearn to be the life of the party or the center of attention. And it's usually born from the opposite, not having attention, not feeling like you're special or you're worthy or what have you. But it can manifest itself in a bunch of different ways. And so, to be honest, I have an ego. And I'm a little bit narcissist. But all artists are, and I'm an artist true to heart. I can draw, I can sing, I can play instruments. I'm a chef. I love creating. And so kind of comes with the territory, you know what I'm saying? So what we try to do is learn ways to mitigate those things. And I know it's a million people out there that's like me in that regard. And so those are the reasons why I'm doing this podcast. I'm doing it in this particular way so that you can understand who I am and why I think, how I arrive at thinking the way I do. I believe I have a lot to offer because I have lived an amazing life. I really should write a book. I really think somebody could do a movie about my life. And I'm going to be as brief as I can in taking you from my birth all the way up to where I am so that we can establish a baseline so that you know who I am. All right. October 27th, 1973. It was a Saturday. And a 15-year-old girl lay waiting to give birth. Scared and ashamed, especially because the nature of her pregnancy surrounded an illicit sexual situation with a family member nonetheless. And so I was born into this world in chaos, in love, but also in extreme chaos. I was the child of a little girl who had been through a traumatic experience. And so I remember being a child and living with my grandmother and my aunties. My grandmother had 7 daughters, so some of them was little girls when I was born. And I remember living with them for a few years. My first recollections are of them living in a big house in West Oak Lane, Philadelphia. Shortly thereafter, a man who my mother fell in love with and who said he would take her away from the shame and the scrutiny and all of that. Kind of sound like Joseph and Mary for a second, don't it? Nah, I ain't gonna equate it to that. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? So this man took her away, took her to Annapolis, Maryland, where he proceeded to inflict some of the most heinous violence you have ever seen a human being inflict on another human being. Cold, cruel, and callous. I watched this man beat my mama like she was a dude. He ran hoes. He was a pimp. He was a drug dealer. He was a shiesty dude. Many dudes wanted his head. On the streets of Philly, his name was Mud. That's why he rolled out. And unfortunately, this man became the father of my brother and sister, who I love dearly. But long story short, I even remember an incident. This man brought one of his hoes home, laid with her in the bed, and had relations with her while my mother held me. And I've never to this day heard a human being cry that deeply or sincerely about something. And I'll never forget the sound of her sobs and her clutching me while she cried about this. But my mom was a G. My mom taught me how to read in the dark when he left us in the dark with no lights and no electricity while he ran the streets for weeks. My mama taught me how to read on a Scrabble board. I cooked my first meal, a can of beans, over a lamp with a little pot because we didn't have no gas, no electricity. And I felt good to feed my mom some beans that I thought I invented. I opened the can with a screwdriver or a steak knife or something crazy. I'm about 5 years old. My little brother, Marcus, was born. He ain't so little no more. Shout out to Philly Black. My brother was born. And when I was 6 years old, and I was like, man, I got somebody to roll with. But man, I don't want him to live this way. The beatings and watching our mom, you know. And so one day, I think it was 1978, 78, 79, my mother's sister. Now imagine this issue with my mom and the family member and how I was born caused a great, great strain on my family and the relationships in the family. There's a lot of moving parts to that. We're not going to get into all those details. That's private stuff, but it caused a very big strain. And so my auntie and my mother hadn't been speaking. But when my auntie found out her sister was in trouble and the duress she was really under, she drove from Philly all the way to Annapolis, Maryland, and put a shotgun under this bull chin. It's like just the last day you go put your hands on my sister. You know what I'm saying? Took us up out of there. Fortunately, it wasn't the last day he did it. We got back to Philly. And some things get blurry because I don't know if in between my mom was still communicating with this dude. She had to be because my sister was born a year later. So, I remember leaving my grandmother's house and living in an apartment. And this man kicked the door, steel door, kicked this door off the hinges. Our door was off the hinges for a few days. And he proceeded to drag my mom around and beat the living slop out of her while I screamed. That was one night. 2 nights later, he came back and I'm sitting in front of my mother's bedroom door while she's still healing. She slept for 2 days, still healing from this beating. Purple marks. My mom light skinned, so she got purple and black and blue all up and down her body. I have to watch my mom naked because I have to help her get in and out of the tub. I sat in front of my mom's door with a cup, with a pencil, screwdriver, knife, anything I could find. And my man came back, and he came back. And I jumped up, whatever it was, I can't remember, screwdriver, scissors, whatever. And his arm hung there for a couple seconds till that man went in the grave. He had a scar on his arm, long scar on his arm from your boy. I forgive that man. There's a reason why. We'll get to it much later. So after these couple of things, whatever happened, he started fading away. A couple of our family members got involved. Now, mind you, I am the first man, kinda, in my family outside of my mother's father. I'm the firstborn of 7 daughters. I'm the first child born and the first man child born, right? Where my uncle's at. You know what I'm saying? Who do I learn to be a man from? Shoot, Cliff Huxtable. Cliff Huxtable and a couple other TV dads at a part of Raise It Be, you know what I mean? Like, so fast forward, we roamed the streets. I think my mom had issues with my grandmother for a while. And so we roamed the streets. We was homeless. We lived in and out of shelters. And finally we landed in Richard Allen Projects in the 80s. the beginning of the crack epidemic. We lived there from 1980 to 1988. During those years is where I tore school up. I used to go to 2 schools because I was part of a mentally gifted program. I was actually part of the first group of American children to be able to test out uh, Microsoft Windows when it first dropped. Before it dropped on the market to purchase, they bought a bunch of us to DC, a bunch of kids, special kids from across the country. You know what I'm saying? I wrote a play in the 6th grade. I won a citywide spelling bee. I was killing it. You know what I mean? But I was also socially awkward. I never could afford a haircut. There were some days we couldn't do laundry, and my clothes smelled dirty. And I remember one time I tried to sew Nike symbols onto a pair of Pro Wings, and I did a good job. They looked like a pair of Nikes. People was like, "Oh, we never seen those Nikes before." And then Trina in gym class had to see my Nike symbol slipping off, going come over there, touch it, move the Nike symbol, and be like, "Pro Wings, hold up!" Embarrass me in front of the whole class. You know what I'm saying? Such was my life up until about the 8th grade. I excelled scholastically. But I was like, man, I want to be one of the cool kids, man. I want to talk to girls. You know what I mean? Now, we grew up in Richard Projects. In 1988, my mother finally was able to get us out. My mother, who had dropped out of high school to have me and all type of stuff, went back and got her GED and then got a job out in Bristol, PA, where we wound up moving to. But first, we moved up 30th and Lehigh, 30th and Huntington, right off of Lehigh Avenue. I'll tell you a story about Dawn Staley at another time, right? Because Dawn Staley was from down 22nd and Lehigh. I ain't saying I know her, but I'm going to tell you a story. I did meet her when we was young bucks. That's for later. We moved around 30th and Lehigh. So at this time, I'm in 8th, 9th grade. I actually went to Simon Gratz High School. I got kicked out of George Washington High School. Then I went to Simon Gratz High School, and Rasheed Wallace was in my homeroom class. Yeah, I remember them days. Yep. So, but I was a knucklehead. I wanted to run the streets. I did some things my mama don't even know I did during them days. I started learning about the drug trade. I started learning about chopping it up, baking soda in it up. You know what I'm saying? These kids I ran with saw these other kids do something. And some of them, I don't know if they snitched or somehow, but the point of it is these cats thought I was part of it. And so one day, coming back from a holiday party with my grandmother, Bull stepped in the middle of the street and lifted up his waistband, showed her the pistol handle. My mom was like, y'all got to get up out of here. Y'all got to get up out of here. Now, in 1988, my sister Jessica was born. And so that's when we moved out the projects. We were so happy to get up out of there. But 2 years later, my grandma was like, y'all got to get out of here. So my auntie lived in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, suburbs right outside Philadelphia. She lived there with her husband and my cousin from Ohio, who was my uncle's niece, and her name was Laquita. And she played a very pivotal role in my life. I love you, Al. I miss you, baby. When my family moved out to Bensalem, we was trying to get an apartment, but it was taking a minute. We was all crammed up in my auntie's little apartment, so it wasn't working. So my mom made a decision to put the family in a shelter. They decided to let me stay with my aunt because we talking about high school, we talking about social ideals going around. Tough for a kid from the shelter to go through high school, all of that. I was already teased in Philly and everything like that. But Bucks County offered a new energy, right? I was the kid from the big city, so I was kind of like a standout. Plus I developed a skill that made me stand out some. My cousin Laquita, me and her were playing around, singing BB and CC Winans songs. So my cousin Laquita was like, "Nah, you got a really good voice though. If you took it seriously, you could do something with it." During them Bucks County years, I formulated some of the best friends of my life. They are still my friends, my brothers to this day. They're not even friends no more. They my brothers to this day. I then moved from that small city in Bucks County into Bristol, Bucks County, or Levittown. Now, real quick, Levittown is the model for all suburbs across America. The Levitt brothers invented the idea of cookie cutter houses that could be prefabricated, long story short, suburbs. You know what I'm saying? And so they built Levittown in Pennsylvania and they built Willingboro, New Jersey. Couple facts for you. I told you I'm smart. Anyway, as you're coming in, again, subscribe, and thank you. And so those high school years were freaking awesome. Shout out to Truman High School. Shout out to class of 93. I got left back a couple times because I wanted to run the streets. In Levittown, I wound up meeting the truest love of my life. That is a whole nother saga that I'm going to sit right over here. Anyway, so it's 1991 and I moved to this town, and everything is love. I built, again, another squad of friends that continue to this day to be literally my brothers, my best friends, and my brothers. Shout out to the Jackson family, the Wiley family, and all my squad, all my Levittown squad, all you dudes. I can't think of y'all right now because so many of you. My man Delano and the Mumfords, you know what I'm saying? Kelsey family, love y'all, man. You know what I mean? And so my singing started coming up. I actually started acting in plays because my jumper wasn't good enough to be on a Truman Tiger basketball team. So I got into theater, drama. I actually blew a scholarship to Rowan University acting because I got into a fight like 25 days before graduation. And so I had to go. I couldn't talk to the recruiter because I wasn't allowed on school grounds during the suspension. I could only come to school from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., 3 to 6. And I hated that all the way up until I walked the aisle, all because I got into a fight with Orlando. Hey, Orlando was my man too. So anyway, long story short, high school was wild. As I'm walking the aisle, actually, my son is being born. My son was born. We walked the aisle in June of 1993. My son was born in July. Now, if I back up a year, in between my 11th and 12th grade year, the United States Army had a thing called split op. Now, my stepdad, who caught up with my mother after many years, her high school sweetheart, my stepdad actually was a drill sergeant in the military. And I had built a little record. I had done some stuff. I had all type of charges on my record, and some of them, it wasn't juvenile stuff. So as a way of mitigating that and getting them kind of wiped away or expunged, I entered into the U.S. Army. And so you do boot camp in between your 11th and 12th grade year. And then when you graduate, you go back and you do your AIT training and you're in the military. So that summer, me and my boy, Mike Jackson, went down, took the tests. I got like a 94, 96 on the ASVAB, not even trying, you know what I'm saying? So I go into the military and two crazy things happen. One, I'm on the plane with Reggie White because Jerome Brown died the night before I left for boot camp. And so the next day I'm on the airplane with Reggie White, but I dare not ask him for an autograph because he looked very sad. Two, when we landed, this is the summer of 92, so you know it was happening, the U.S. Olympics, the Dream Team. I watched the first game that the Dream Team ever played in boot camp. It was my first day of boot camp in Columbia, South Carolina, 4th Platoon Warriors. Huh. You know what I mean? And so the U.S. military was a wild experience for me there. Some things happened, and I was discharged with an uncharacterized discharge. I went through some spiritual and mental things while I was in there. I seen some things that I can't explain how they didn't resonate with me. During those years too, the Iran-Contra stuff was starting to build up. They were sending young men over to the desert, you know what I'm saying, to get it. I wasn't scared. It was almost like I was against the philosophy or the idea or whatever. And so I just had these issues. So they sent me to the psych hospital, Army Psych Hospital. And that's when the an Army psychiatrist diagnosed me with a histrionic personality disorder. And he made me read it myself out of a psychiatric book. And again, there's a lot of elements and layers to it. So I don't want to get into all the details. But again, I was uncharacterized, but I was discharged. When I came home, I told a lie that caused me to lose a lot of people, to lose credibility. And it made me feel really bad because I didn't mean for it to grow as large as it did. And I really had to beg forgiveness for people because I didn't reveal the truth about that lie for many years later. But it started back then. And I'm thankful for the people that did forgive me. And I made it a point that grown ass men don't lie. I'm a grown ass man. I'm going to stand on my own. I'm going to stand up for whatever I said, did, or represented. You know what I'm saying? So it's a very big, important thing to me. I didn't like the way it made me feel inside. I felt icky about it. And for that same reason, The only woman I ever cheated on, that I ever truly cheated on, I told her the truth about it. I had to. I told somebody who was in love with me, who I could have had, and I didn't never have to tell her about the, you know, my son's mother or this, that, or the third, but I didn't do that. I ain't trying to gain no points from nobody. I'm just saying my Uncle Derek had taught me a lesson, had told me something, and from that, I was like, I will never cheat on a person because the hurt that that person experienced, I don't want that. That's heavy. That's heavy, heavy, heavy. People die for that. People get killed for that. So I decided I would never do that. You know what I mean? Not like, I told women if I was with another woman, and I had hard conversations when I had to about it. But to this day, the only person I ever cheated on cheated back on me too. So got me right back. Yeah, I mean, so that's that. So during the years after high school, I started getting heavy, heavy, heavy. My singing group, I had ran the streets for a minute, and I got into some trouble, and I was like, man, I gotta cool it. My son's here, and I gotta chill out, man. Like I gotta stop trying to be a thug. I ain't no thug. You know what I mean? Toting guns and robbing people and stuff like that. I was like, nah, I gotta do something else. Too smart for that. My grandmother, my great grandmother, around that time had passed away, and she was a G. My mom Foy was a G. She left all her kids and grandkids and even great grandkids enough bread to do a little something with. I got mine and used it to enter college and to get my first degree. I got an associate's degree. 2 years later, in 1995, I got an associate's degree in medical lab technology. And so again, during those years, I was getting heavier and heavier with my singing group. We was really taking off. We had taken on new management. I was working in restaurants, and I did a lot of different work. I had a truck driver's license, so I had worked for the city as a garbage man. You know what I'm saying? But I will always go back to the culinary industry. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I am heavy, heavy with the singing group, and I grew up. I love 90s music to this day because that is my era. I grew up, man. I mean, oh my God. But yeah, man. So that whole era that we was traveling, we was singing, we was going up and down the highway. I got married in that time span. I got married to a girl. I had two children. And as the late 90s came, we had been trying so hard. We had been at so many parties, so many deals we signed, quick little deals with this company, that company. Back and forth to New York every weekend. Back and forth to New York trying to get on this or that. Open for this cat. I seen some wild stuff, yeah. Rap labels didn't really know how to handle R&B cats. You had a couple rap labels that had in-house R&B singers or whatever like that. Shout out to my man, our lead singer. Technically, we could all lead sing, but our lead singer, he could have left us and had a solo career. A lot of people threw him offers, and he didn't, and we was loyal to each other. And unfortunately, we gave that loyalty to somebody who mishandled our career. And so even though we did a lot of big stuff, a lot of great stuff, it didn't materialize the way we wanted to. So for me, I had a wife, I had children, I had to start thinking about something else. I did a bunch of jobs in that time, but unfortunately, as the 2000s rolled in, me and my wife, we was not on good terms. My mouth is dry. We was not on good terms, and unfortunately, we separated, pending headed toward divorce. And then my life really changed. I met a young sister that was part of the Hebrew Israelite nation. And I had never heard of these cats, and I was a Christian. My granddaddy was a preacher. My grandmother looked at me when I was little. It was like, oh, you're going to be a preacher. You got that kind of energy. You're going to be a preacher. You're going to grow up and be a preacher. And so I'm nasty with the Bible. What? Because my grandmother is vicious. I'm nasty with it. I was like young Christ. I could teach old heads about the Bible when I was a young boy. I knew that book. I knew that word. I knew advanced meanings and things like that. Still do. And so the things I learned from them changed my life, changed my mind state about the Most High, changed my mind state about history, changed my mind state about being black, changed my mind in a lot of ways. And I spent the next 15 years of my life dedicated soldier to the mission of what the Hebrew Israelites was on. So with the Hebrew Israelites, I learned things mystical. I learned things ancient. I learned things. I mean, I had really, really, really good teachers whose only agenda was to enlighten black folks about knowing themselves more than saying, well, I'm from Africa. And I'll leave it there. Not going to get into anything political or super religious. What I will say is I seen some of the most amazing spiritual things, mind blowing, unbelievable. If I really told you the details of, you'd be like, man, get out of here. So after those 15 years, unfortunately, what happened is we still human beings living a human existence. There's still the possibility of treachery, jealousy, envy, spite. Those things can still pop up, even in people who are holy, righteous, or God-loving people. You know what I'm saying? We still all works in progress, I'm gonna say. And so, unfortunately, I lost my connection. Well, I didn't lose my connection. I chose to step away from that group. I love them still dearly and still consider myself, affiliated and associated. They profoundly changed my life and how I view spirituality, how I view the being that we refer to as God, Most High, whatever term you want to use. And so, yeah. So after that, my culinary career started really heating up. Now, while I was still with the Hebrew Israelites, I became vegan. We opened a vegan cafe. And at the time, I think it was '07, '08, at the time, I mean, there wasn't that many vegan places nowhere. Like, it wasn't that many people willing to eat vegan, eating vegan. And so, again, my culinary career started heating up. Around this time, I started working for a company in the sports and entertainment business. They have a culinary division. I ain't even going to say their name, but I got a chance to work for the Philadelphia 76ers, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Flyers, my home teams who I love. You see that bird back there. After that, I got into a relationship with a sister that was from Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio. So I moved to Cincinnati and worked for the Bengals. Now, when I say work for these cats, I'm not talking about in the concession stands. I'm talking about 6 days a week. I cook for the players, the coaches, the owners. You know what I'm saying? So in between the seasons, there's concerts at the arenas. So if I drop you a name list of the people I to put plates in front of, but it was a very tumultuous relationship, and I was attracted to women that had issues for some reason. I wouldn't dare say it was all their fault. I was learning things about myself too. Now, something happened when I was 27 years old. This was while I was actually still married to my first wife. I found out the truths of the illicit situation that happened to my mother because for years didn't know. I didn't know. I thought that I had no father. I thought that the dude whose last name I had was the guy that I jumped up and stabbed in the arm that fathered my brother and sister. And I kind of felt alone, even though I had people around. And I had uncles. I had men that my aunties married, and they helped me during them formative years. But for some reason, somehow I still kind of felt alone, like I'm out here just like God is my father. You know what I mean? I don't have no real dad. You know what I mean? But so when I found out the nature and who my real dad was and how it happened and what happened to my mom and how it affected the family, it changed me. My wife at the time said I went to sleep. I woke up a different person. I was a different person. So I was angry, and I went through a number of years being like an angry dude, getting into fights a lot, getting fired from jobs for snapping. I tried to commit suicide in the year 2001. I tried to commit suicide before I joined the Israelites. Right before I joined them, I tried to commit suicide. I'll tell that story one day. And so, being in Cincinnati, it was a tumultuous relationship. I wound up rolling out of there. So that brings us to 2017. I spent the summer and the first couple of months of the Eagles football season up to game 5 in jail. Lost my temper with a judge. Now, the judge was messing with me. I ain't going to get into it right here. The judge was messing with me, and I lost it. See, I told you had been a hothead, had been getting into fights. I fought my own brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was on the edge. I was angry. We got up to about 2020, and something happened. I got married, but I was still angry, stressed out. I still had deep-seated things going on inside me. And so I was like, dang, I can't keep a wifey, you know what I mean? Come up to I owned a food truck or co-owned a food truck in there, and me and my partner got to the point of pretty much pulling pistols. Well, he pulled a pistol at me. I was in the middle of working. So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. As 2020 rolled up, I found an opportunity to go to Houston, Texas. Very good childhood friend Somebody that I love dearly was down there and helped me get set up down there and everything. And I just went to explore some opportunities, wound up working for a supermarket chain for a couple years. And then I landed a job as the executive chef for Dr. Montgomery's Garden Kitchen. Now, 2 weeks ago to this day, about 2.5 weeks ago, Dr. Montgomery passed away. But when I tell you, this man was a revolutionary. He had a restaurant attached to his cardiology practice, and he was saving lives. I seen people on the doorstep of death, and within 40 days, sometimes 28 days, completely reverse. And I'm talking about stuff from not only heart disease and high blood pressure, but I'm talking about cancers and diabetes. Met a ton of stars down there because he was doing work with NFL players, retired NFL players, retired ball players, getting them back to almost a playing shape in their older age with a vegan diet, and a particular type of structured vegan diet. My job was to make it taste good. My job was to take the science, take the clinical science from the doctor, make it look and taste good so these people stay on this program. I created an extensive menu, and so I learned exponentially. Now, again, I re-entered school as an online student, University of Arizona, Wildcats. I joined the University of Arizona, which I graduated last year. Got my bachelor's degree in complementary and alternative medicine. Let's take a drink to that. Yes, yes, y'all. So now I got 2 degrees. And that brings us to today. I left Houston last year because something very traumatic spiritually and emotionally happened. Yeah, why does this keep happening, man? What is going on? Why does the Lord keep punishing me? And I went to probably the lowest place ever. Now, one of my mistakes was I thought I was healed from all the other past trauma. I actually underwent a psychiatric evaluation where the psychiatrist told me that I had absorbed as much stress, angst, pain, and just crazy stuff in my life, that I had witnessed enough violence and just so much that it was equal to somebody who had been through war. It was the same as somebody who had PTSD from going through war. And I was like, yeah. I had gotten very good at talking around it, laughing around it, playing, But I sit here today because not only do I stand on the shoulders of some immensely smart people, I sit here today and declare myself healed. First of all, the healing process is an ongoing process. We may never actually be completely healed. And so it's how we mitigate it day to day. Sometimes you just need to get from one day to another. So again, that's why I made this podcast. In between all of that, I have so many stories. Again, all true and verifiable. I'll tell you how I got into a fight with Ray J. I'll tell you how I got into a fight with an NFL player. He almost knocked me into the middle of next week. And I mean, it was epic. But again, in sincerity, I'm sharing this all with you because I want to enlighten you. I want to entertain you. I just want to touch your soul. Is that creepy sounding? And before we go, I want you to see the interview that I did with my mother on Juneteenth, the day that this episode was supposed to drop. So it'll all flow right into each other. But I want you to meet my mother. She's known me the longest. Again, the name of this episode is Know Thyself. And so as y'all coming in, hit that like and subscribe button for me. We need those subscribers. And every week I plan on having a guest who has some expertise or knowledge of a particular thing. And so since this first episode is about me, I brought an expert on me. Somebody who knows me, right? Is an expert on me. This person has known me the longest of any human being on this planet because she gave birth to me. She is my wonderful, amazing, beautiful, talented, awesome mother. Her name is Sharice Reynolds. Say hi to the people.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
I see you there at your workshop.
Yes.
Yeah. She giving the TV answers. Yes. Hey, Mom, what's your fondest memory of me, real quick?
Wow.
Now, before I say this, mother of 5 children and have adopted so many of our friends and people from the neighborhood. So she's not only our mom, she's everybody's mom, but she's our mom. And shout out to my brothers and sisters and my siblings. I would be remiss, we talking about me in this episode, but shout out to all my brothers and sisters as well. We came from the same womb. So go ahead, Mom. Excuse me.
My fondest moments of you when you were younger were when things would go wrong You would always say to me, Mom, everything is going to be okay. Mom, we're going to make it through this. Even when we didn't have much to eat, you were strong. You were strong. You believed in God. You would always say, Mom, it's time for me to go to bed. And I'd be like, why? Because God said so.
Mm-hmm.
After we
God ain't want me
read
watching no
the word
cartoons
and
all
stuff.
late at night. I had to go to bed.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when we were in the storms, you were the one that kept me going. You really were. You may not have known it because you were just a kid, but to me, just hearing you say, "Mom, it's gonna be okay. Mom, we're gonna pull through this."
Mom, what kind of
And
thoughts?
you were smart. You were smart. You were always smart.
I be trying to tell these people.
You
See,
were
that's what I'm saying.
smart. You
So when you were, so I told the people you was 15 years old when you had me. What was going through
yeah.
your mind? Because I got 15-year-old nieces, and I'm looking at them like, ain't none of y'all ready. Had no babies. Y'all better not have no babies.
Well, what I was thinking about back then was, wow, I'm about to be a mother. I was scared. I was ashamed because I was so young. But like I said, I had help. So some of the fear was gone. But to know that I'm still in school, I'm like, how am I going to finish school? How am I going to get a job at this young age? What am I going to teach my son? I don't know much myself.
And it's the
But yeah,
1970s.
so mine was,
So it's not like today where
yes,
you have different things and even a different
mhm,
mentality. It's the 1970s.
fear was still there.
And so
Like, what can I give my son?
you would say that you grew up quickly, right? Like you had to become more
I,
responsible
I
and less
grew up too
lazy, because all
fast.
teenagers is lazy, you know what I mean? You know,
Yeah. I grew up too fast. I
well,
had to grow up too fast.
yeah. Well, I briefly, without a lot of details, I touched on the fact that there was an added layer of pressure and stress because of the nature of how I was born and the nature of
Yeah.
that whole scenario. Again, I didn't go,
Yes.
not a lot of details and stuff,
Right.
but
I felt shame. I
yeah.
felt a lot of shame. I felt guilt, even though people were telling me it wasn't, but I did. I felt shame. I felt guilt. I had other siblings, that were to look up to me. And here I am pregnant. What is my friends going to think in high school? What are people in the world going to think, about me?
Mom, you might not know this because I don't think I've ever said this even out loud, but I'm gonna say this is that when I was younger, so many people had told me that I was smart, that I got arrogant in my mind with it, and at one point even would say that I felt like I was smarter than you know what I mean? But I learned that that's impossible. Your life experiences. I actually, to be honest, since we're having this conversation, I'm gonna be honest and not to offend you, but I would think at times that you was always nice to people who hurt you. You was always kind and sweet and forgiving to people who did dirt to you and kicked dirt on your name. And I looked at it as a weakness back then. But what I come to learn and understand and what I want to give you flowers about is that shows a gigantic, monumental strength to not become bitter and hateful toward a person because I have the propensity to possibly become bitter and hateful inside of me, just to be honest about myself.
But I
You know
didn't
what I
teach
mean?
y'all.
You didn't teach it to me, but I'm just being honest. Inside of myself, I've had to
Yes,
neutralize the almost the call, the draw to become evil and resentful and
yes.
hateful to somebody who did something to me, only to somebody who did something to me. And so to watch you, I know you and I know your story. So I know the things that have happened to you physically, mentally, and spiritually. I know what happened to you. I know your story. So, but to see you and to see the person that you are after all of that is absolutely phenomenal. It's absolutely because
I always felt weak.
I feel like I would have either
I
broke
always felt,
or I would have choked a lot of people out. I would have been fighting, killing, and biting and scratching and clawing people. You know what I mean?
well, I
Well, I'll
had
say
children
previous
to
versions of
raise,
me.
so
Let me
I
get
had
that
to
straight.
block that.
I'm sorry, let me get something
Okay.
straight. Previous versions of me, not me now, previous versions of me could have been
hmm
moved to be that way.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, for a long time, I felt that. I felt like I was weak. I really did. I felt like I was not strong enough. But what kept me going, David, was no, I didn't want anyone else to raise y'all. I didn't want y'all taken from me. I didn't want to see y'all in a group home.
Thank you.
So I had to pull myself together.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
mom, even though I knew that God was watching over, you kids were my strength. Remember when I failed at Temple University and y'all said, but mom, you can do it. And I went back and I passed the test
Yeah.
at Temple College. And from that day forth, so I do have a lot of weak moments. I don't want anybody to think that your life is going to be, peachy keen all the time. You
Right.
do get, you get stronger each episode in your life that you go through.
Mm-hmm.
So if you young girls find yourself in that situation, you have to be prepared. First of all, don't have sex, until you know you're ready. Don't have it if you know you're not ready,
Mm-hmm.
especially in today's world. So if it was a struggle for us back then, I can imagine what it would be right now,
Yeah.
But y'all were my biggest strength. I looked at y'all and that's what.
Well, I definitely want to give you flowers. I was arrogant and haughty in my thinking when I was younger. Again, because so many people kept telling me how smart I was and I was winning this and that and this. And but I got to give you your flowers. You are the main example of strength manifested in my life that I know. And every time I think about you, I'm like, you're absolutely amazing. So let's tell the people what you do real quick, because I've been talking these people's heads off.
Well,
Let's
I
show
have
the people a little bit of what you do. My mom makes the bombest stuff, man. Like anything, like so many different things. I can't even name them all. Like, look, real quick. My mom made this pillow. She can make any NFL team. This is the greatest NFL team ever walking, ever assembled. My mom make my Eagles handbag. You know what I mean? That I carry my vitamins in this. Eagles posters. You know what I mean? For the tablecloth. Look, she's showing you her stuff there. Yeah, look. That's
liquid made
dope.
out of glass. Liquid turned into glass.
Liquid turned into glass. Are you making jars and vases now? Yeah, we
You want
definitely
me?
we gotta
Would
get
you
you an
like me
Etsy
to
store.
get
We
the
gotta get
one
you a
I did?
store. Thank you for making me smart. The best way I can honor you and give you flowers, to be honest, is by trying to be the best man that I can. So I want you to know I'm out here.
I'm proud of all of
I
y'all.
don't I don't do wrong to people as best as I can. I slip up here and there, but I'm honorable. You can leave me with your money. You can leave me with your girl. I'm a good person. And I'm a
You are.
professional. When I speak, people listen. I know how to command a room, but I know how to be gracious. And so, even though you weren't a man, you helped me be soft and tender as well as you know. So I really thank you. I love you. Yeah.
I wanted to be a tennis player.
Is that what you wanted to be? A tennis player?
That's what I dreamed. That's what I dreamed of being, a tennis player. I
What?
took
My
up
mom would have
tennis
been the first
in junior high
Serena.
school because I wanted to play against Billie Jean King. I used to
Ooh,
watch her all the
he's
time,
gonna
and
give it to her.
I started in junior high and played in high school,
Okay.
and tables took a different turn.
Okay. That's awesome. That's so awesome. That's so awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. All right, Mom.
Yep.
Well,
But
I'm gonna go ahead get to cutting this
I'm proud
video
of
up.
you.
I love you. Thanks for being my guest.
Yes. Love you.
All right. Please like and subscribe. Please come back. This is the smartest podcast in the world. My name is Chef Soul.